Welcome to today's eESI podcast. Our topic, practical HR tips for managers. And today's episode, the reluctant manager. Our special guests are Melina, Bassey, and Karla, Saenz. Melina is an HR business partner at eESI. She has 20 plus years of PEO experience working with industries such as retail, healthcare, and construction. Karla is an HR business partner at eESI too, with PHR and SHRM certifications, and she has also been in the PEO industry for 20 years. Well, welcome to the program today. Thank you so much for being part.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
The reluctant manager. Let's talk about that.
When I think about the reluctant manager, it could be a couple things. It could be someone new, right? Someone who was just promoted, hasn't exactly figured out that that promotion also means dealing with people and what comes with that. Or it could be the manager who has tons of experience, maybe even has an HR degree, but hasn't had experience in everything, because HR could be many things. Maybe they haven't had experience with the family medical leave and someone being on workers' comp and how those interplay. Or maybe they don't really have experience in the DOL and what the FLSA laws require in terms of pay. So sometimes you start to second-guess yourself. Another thing they may do is fail to address minor issues or feel like their hands are tied. And those are some of the things that we want to talk about in this podcast.
Okay, let's talk about that. So second-guessing yourself, failing to address minor issues, and the fact that they feel their hands are tied are some of the issues that new managers often deal with. Let's talk about second-guessing yourself. What do you mean by that?
Because employees will use buzzwords like hostile work environment, discrimination, or you're violating my human rights. As we see in social media, commercials, I believe even on the radio, commercials are being advertising with these key buzzwords. And employees get familiar with these words. Maybe they don't know exactly what it means, but they use them as they're discussing information with their manager. You're making this a hostile work environment. You're discriminating against me because I'm pregnant. And because they say those buzzwords, they put the fear in the manager's minds, and then they don't act or don't act consistently.
What you mean by that is that when a manager hears them use those terms, the manager goes, okay, what's up? And there may be some fear that they have an agenda.
Absolutely. And when this happens, we advise clients or managers and provide recommendations that they need to take a step back, evaluate the situation, go into their HR toolbox, and act appropriately by addressing the claim.
Okay, what is an HR toolbox?
An HR toolbox comes with experience and training. It's a combination of trainings, how-tos, forms, when to contact HR department, your employee handbook, policies, and things of that nature.
Okay, so if you're a new manager, the HR toolbox is an understanding of what you need to know in order to handle situations appropriately. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And two of the ways that I can get that understanding, if I'm a new manager, as you mentioned, I can look through the employee manual or the policy manual of my company, and I can also receive this through training. Now, do most companies have that kind of policy manual in place, and do they have access to that training?
Unfortunately, no, they don't. It's very important for companies to have a manual in place, and we see very often with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses where they have not created a manual of policies and they go off what they've done in the past. So they use their practices. And what happens there when you go off of practices, if you're not consistent with that and you pick and choose, it could be viewed as you're just discriminating against somebody because they're a woman or because of their religion. So you really have to be very careful to stay compliant with your practices. And it's very important for companies to establish a work manual to follow their policies and have them in place so managers and employees know where they are.
If I'm a small business owner or a mid-sized business owner or I'm an executive, a senior vice president for a company, if I don't already have a manual, where can I find a manual and where can I find training?
There's several places that you can have access to this information. One of them is online. However, the best practice is to seek either through legal counsel or you can go to a client service like ourselves and contact your HRBP where we sit down with an owner or a manager and create that manual that's specific to your organization. We go through a questionnaire, ask questions that are geared toward your organization, what you want to do as far as paid time off, holiday, things that we need to know to help you manage your workforce, and things that you want your employees to know, their policies, what are available to them by working with you.
And I'm assuming you'll also talk about how to handle situations that arise for a manager. It'll tell me basically step by step, here's how you do this. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what about training?
There are several types of training that are very important, especially to stay abreast with the everyday laws that are changing. There is leadership training that is very important for either a new manager or even a manager that's been in a role for many years, just to stay fresh and current. We provide several trainings that are available to our clients through a learning management system that covers not only the leadership series, but it also covers into sexual harassment, harassment prevention, and safety. Things that you need to know as a manager to assist you managing your everyday realities in your workforce.
Okay, so I can get some of this information online, but really the best place to get it is through a company like our own, eESI, where they're prepared to prepare a manual for you, to create clearly for a manager what they should or shouldn't do, how they should handle certain situations. You also mentioned failure to address minor issues. What did you mean by that?
We see this pattern quite often with managers who fail to address minor performance shortcomings, and they'll wait till the performance or behavior gets out of control. Then at that time, they start calling us to come up with a resolution. How can I get rid of this employee? And oh, by the way, she's pregnant. And oh, by the way, they just filed a workers' comp claim. But if they would have just addressed it at the very beginning with those performance and behaviors, if the employee, for example, is consistently late for their scheduled shift, or if they're constantly calling in every Friday, or if they're passing their deadlines to get a project done, those conversations really need to be had at the time of the incident and not wait until the very end where the minor issue has become a major issue, and now it's going to appear that they're being retaliated against.
So you're saying one of the most important things that a manager can do, in addition to getting training and being able to review the policy manual and have access to that when they need it, is to make sure that they keep track of every issue that arises. And do they need to notify the employee when those happen?
Yes, they do. The last thing you want is when you're terminating an employee for them to look surprised. What do you mean? You never told me this before. So when you have these conversations proactively and you document all the conversations and you discuss these issues that need to be approved in advance, you avoid that awkward conversation where the employee is upset, they were unaware that this was coming.
Okay. So make sure that you document and notify employees when any of the rules regarding work are broken to protect yourself. And I imagine if you state that up front and you do it whenever it happens, not just intermittently, they'll know to expect it and it won't be the big issue. I'd imagine a manager sometimes doesn't want to make an issue of something, but the reality is it might become a lot more of an issue if they don't document it.
Correct.
Now, you also mentioned hands are tied. Now, what do you mean by that?
That is a tough one, Lou. That is usually happens when we get managers that refer, in the cases of our clients, that'll refer them to HR. An employee will call you and say, hey, what's my PTO? Do I get it paid out if I resign? Or I just resigned. Am I going to get my PTO? I asked my manager. They said to talk to you. Or an employee calling HR to complain about schedules, not understanding why their day off was unapproved. And we have to circle back with the manager and say, hey, did they give you the advance notice as required in your policy? If they did, why wasn't it approved? Is there an issue? Kind of help them through those things. And you'll find those managers say, well, I can't approve it anyway. I have to go through the owner. Or I don't have the authority to approve it. Let me ask someone else. And what we find is when employees keep hearing that the manager doesn't have the authority or has to ask someone else when asked about things like paid time off or if they're going to get a holiday pay or if they're going to get a raise, they start losing credibility. So they start losing that credibility with their employees. And then employees start seeking those answers from someone outside the company. And that's how I think we see a lot of those EEOC claims come through. It's not okay to say that you don't know, you have to ask someone else. I really want to encourage managers to really become familiar with their policies And if they start hearing employees say things like, I don't feel like this is fair, not to sweep it under the rug. Get to the root cause of that. Why is this unfair? Why do you feel that way? And help explain why you made a decision that you made.
So you're saying it's very important that a manager, especially a new manager, knows they have the authority as well as the title to make decisions, and thus very important that they're trained properly and that they have the information they need in the employee or the company manual, policy manual, and that a company really needs to have a policy manual that spells out clearly how managers should act and how they should handle certain situations. And they should also have some kind of training available, ongoing training. You have quite an expansive library for training for companies. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about that.
We do. So for companies who prefer on-site training, you have an HR business partner that will be happy to do that with you. Go on-site, train new managers. We have a host of different topics when it comes to new manager training. It could be anything from hiring legally to helping coach, counsel, or even terminate employees. And there's also the very popular essential employment laws. Because a lot of times managers know their job very well. They just don't know what the law means in terms of having employees. We also have trainings available online. That's very popular as well because we have an HR library for that. We also have a safety library, both equally important. That's to help employers do what the law says we're required to do, which is to offer a safe work environment free of harassment and discrimination for our employees. The nice thing about those libraries online is that the managers can assign them to employees. They can kind of track where they are with it and then make sure if they feel like this person has some shortcomings or needs some more help in one area, kind of give them a learning plan specific to them.
Well, thank you, Karla and Melina, for your help today and for your comments, for your advice. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to eESI's Karla Saenz and Melina Bassey as they discussed The Reluctant Manager on Part 2 of our 3-part series on practical HR tips for managers. As you've heard today, every company needs an HR toolbox to help their managers avoid expensive fines, even lawsuits, when it comes to managing employees. And two of the most important elements in that toolbox are a detailed company policy manual and online training that is current. It can be difficult to put together all the information you need to train and support managers, but not if you partner with eESI. eESI HR business partners are prepared to help you create the customized policy manuals you need for your company. And eESI's extensive online training library contains more than 500 courses to handle virtually any situation. We can help you create a custom training program that works well for you. To learn more about partnering with eESI or to learn more about our online training program, simply call 210-495-1171. That's 210-495-1171. Or send us an email at support@eesipeo.com. That's support@eesipeo.com. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, another in our series designed to help you simplify business.